So I'm sorry there's a highway behind me, so there may be some background noise. I've not shot at this place before, but I will try to find a better place depending on how this sounds in the audio. What I have today is Bulgarian Factory 10 ammo, and I'm going to fire it through my M44, which is the carbine, my friend's 9130, which is going to be like a mid-length or almost full-length rifle, and then my 1891 long rifle. So between the three of those, we should be able to see what the velocity difference is between, and maybe we'll try some accuracy testing too. .2801. .2788. Because of this thing's short barrel, the chronograph is shaking. 2739. .2766. And finally, 2763. All right, let's go grab the 9130. All right, so next I have a 9130. You would expect higher velocities from the longer barrel. .2930. .2888. .2911. .2895. .2869. Okay, let's grab the 1891 and see if the results are any different. All right, so now I have my 1891. Let's try this thing out and we'll see if the velocities are any higher. .2910. .2947. .2879. .2925. .2933. So that was our time on the range. Before we talk about velocities, we should talk about barrel lengths. So I would argue that the 9130 isn't so much of a universal short rifle, like the Lee Enfield or the Kar 98K are. Instead, it's more of a shortened long rifle. Because it was adopted alongside carbines like the M38. So what I have here is the M44 in the front and the M91 in the back. I don't have the M9130 with me right now. However, the barrel length is about 2.5 inches shorter than the M91, so you can just subtract 2.5 inches from the back of that. I've lined the barrels up since the actions are the same length, so that is why you're seeing the stocks. I thought it would show up better on camera. The M91 has a barrel length of 31.5 inches. The 9130 has a barrel length of 29 inches, and the M44 has a barrel length of 20.2 inches. So now let's talk about those velocities. So let's get started with the M44. The lowest velocity was 2,739, and the highest was 2,801. So that's a total range of 62 feet per second, and the average was 2,771.4. The 9130 had a lowest that was 2,869, and a highest that was 2,930. And that is also a spread of 61, which is really close to that 62 we got on the M44. The average for the 9130 was 2,898.6. The 1891, the lowest was 2,879, and the highest was 2,947. That leads us to a range of 68 feet per second from the lowest to the highest, and an average of 2,918.8. From now on, the numbers I will be talking about will be the averages, unless I otherwise specify. What this gives us is a difference from the M44 to the 9130 of about 130 feet per second, and from the M44 to the 1891, an average of about 150 feet per second. What surprised me the most was that the difference between the 9130 and the 91 was only 20 feet per second. Since the 91 was adopted first, and they shortened it to the 9130 in 1930, it kind of makes sense why they would shorten it. So what they did was they cut off 0.7 pounds off of the front of the gun, which is going to be quite a bit of weight in general. It's also going to be less handy to walk around with. Like, I've noticed getting the 1891 in and out of my safe is just a hassle because it's a long rifle. So with those differences, the weight off of the end and the handiness that comes from a shorter rifle, they've only lost 20 feet per second, which is actually not a big deal. That's within the deviation from one round to another round. Now, when I look at these individual rounds, and you can see those numbers up on the screen, I still think that this is definitely shooting higher. It's discernibly higher. But some of the rounds are actually crossing over between the two. I don't think it's enough difference to really make a difference. However, when we drop down to the length of the M44, we're losing 150 feet per second, which is definitely noticeable. That may seem like a lot, and that is actually quite a bit. I would like to say that probably the largest difference you're getting is sight radius, making it harder to be more precise. And in the case of the M44, you're getting the bayonet you need to have fixed if you want to be able to hit anything. So although that loss is significant, it's not as significant as it could be. So what is there to learn in all of this? Well, I would like to start by saying that, the Soviets switched from the 1891 to the 9130, and I would say in general that was a very good move. They cut down the length of the barrel. I think that was a positive. They changed the sights. I think that was a positive. I would say the one thing that I've noticed that I don't like is the trigger. I think the 1891 is a better trigger than the 9130, and I think that largely comes down to production quality between the, at least my Remington, and the Soviet manufactured guns. So all around, if I had to choose between a 9130 and an 1891, not to own but to actually use, I would go with the 9130. I think it's better in many regards. As far as comparing those two to the carbine, it shows some of the advantages you get out of a longer rifle. Yes, you get sight radius. You also get less of a muzzle flash in the longer rifles than you do the shorter rifles, or at least the M44 in this instance. You also have less recoil because of the larger, heavier gun. However, you have the burden of needing to carry the gun, so if you are going to be carrying it more than you're shooting it, that's not really too big of a problem. Given this information, since I have access to a M44, a 9130, and an 1891, are there any videos you would like to see on this? If there are, please drop those down below. I think one other thing I've learned is I would like to test this with some different ammos. Like I said, I was using specifically Bulgarian ammo from Factory 10. I could do that with modern Tula ammo, or maybe even Russian Soviet surplus ammo to get the actual Russian stuff, because I'm sure all of those would render slightly different effects. The last thing I would like to say is that I would like to do this type of ballistic testing with other long rifles and short rifles, or long rifles and carbines. So maybe get my hands on a 8mm long rifle like a Turkish Mauser or something like that that's longer than the short rifles like the 2447 I have, or a Kar 98K. And test this against some other things, not just with Mosin Nagants, although the Mosin Nagants were interesting, I believe. Which of these rifles is best for individual circumstances and their needs is not something I can really decide in every instance. However, please have that conversation in the comments. Let me know what you think these rifles shine in, or where they think that they have drawbacks. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm trying to change my upload schedule a little bit so that I do a video one week, and then the next week do a short, or do a fun video that doesn't really fit in with what I normally try to do. In any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please like the video and leave a comment, and I will see you in a couple weeks. Goodbye.